Why is communication so difficult, particularly between lovers?
Premda. Communication as such is difficult. Of course, it is more difficult between lovers. But first, you have to understand the general difficulty of communication. Each mind has been conditioned by different parents, different teachers, different priests, different politicians. It is a different world in itself. And when two minds try to communicate, as far as the ordinary mundane things are concerned, there is no difficulty. But the moment they start moving beyond things, into the world of concepts, communication starts becoming more and more difficult. For example, Gautama the Buddha does not have any God in his philosophy. He is far more free from God than even Friedrich Nietzsche. At least Friedrich Nietzsche states that God is dead. The implication is clear that it used to be alive, now it is dead. Gautam Buddha does not talk about God at all. It is so irrelevant that he does not pay any attention to the subject. Now, to a Christian or to a Hindu or to a Mohammedan, it is impossible to conceive a religion without God. God is the center of most of the religions. Only three religions are free of God. One is Gautam Buddha's, another is Mahavira's, and the third is Lao Tzu's. When for the first time Christian missionaries came into contact with Buddhist scriptures, they could not even conceive the idea that a religion can be without a God. What kind of religion will be there if there is no God? How you are going to pray? To whom? Who is going to send his prophets and his only begotten Son? Who is going to send saviors for you? Who is going to judge whether you are to be sent to hell or heaven? God removed, hell and heaven are also removed. God removed, punishment and reward are also removed. God removed, the very idea of judgment is removed. Then there is no sin and no virtue. Who will decide it? And they were even more surprised that Gautam Buddha is known by his disciples and now even by those who are not disciples as Bhagwan Gautam Buddha. Now Bhagwan means God. This was very puzzling. Gautam Buddha does not believe in any God. How he even allowed his disciples to address him as Bhagwan. The same is the situation with Jainism. They are even more strict about the absence of God. Buddha simply ignores the whole subject. It is not worth any consideration. Jainism does not leave it because there is a danger of the whole thing propping up again once Mahavira is gone. He wants it to be clearly stated that there is no God and there has never been any God and there is no creation because there is no creator. It is an evolving world. What Charles Darwin found 2000 years afterwards was known to Mahavira that it is not a creation, it is an evolving world. It has been forever here and will be forever here. The whole concept of creation and a creator is just idiotic. Mahavira was very strict because he did not want that God may in some disguise prop up when he is gone. Because people have a certain unconscious hankering for it. It gives a certain false consolation to people. To avoid the false consolation is absolutely necessary if you want really to be consoled. If you want authentically to be at peace with existence, then all that is false and based only on belief has to be discarded. But again, the problem, the followers of Mahavira addressed him as Bhagwan. Now communication becomes difficult because Bhagwan means a totally different thing to the Buddhist and the Jainas than it means to the Hindus, Mohammedans, Christians, Jews. Their whole concept develops in a totally different way. For the religions which are God-centered, God comes in the beginning, before everything. He creates the world, and nobody bothers from where He comes. If there was no world at all, how He managed to exist and where? There must have been a small island or some cloud, something. God cannot exist in nothingness. And if God can exist in nothingness, then what is the problem? Why bring Him unnecessarily? Existence is perfectly good, autonomous, not dependent on a despot which you call God. He is whimsical according to those who do not believe. Because for eternity, He just remained silent. What He was doing? Smoking? Taking drugs? Or just dreaming? Sleeping? In a coma? What is the situation? Because according to Christians, He created the world only 6,000 years before. And 6,000 years is such a stupid idea. Because India has scriptures which are far ancient than the Christian God. The Rig Veda, according to the Hindu scholars, and I support them on that point. I don't think Rig Veda is something great. Perhaps 2% of it has something beautiful and spiritual. 98% is simply crap. So I don't agree on their idea that Rig Veda is written by God, but I certainly agree with their concept that Rig Veda is 90,000 years old, because the proof and evidence is intrinsic. 90,000 years before, there happened a certain constellation of stars, and it has not happened since then again. That constellation of stars is described in Rig Veda in absolute and perfect detail. Now, it is an astronomical argument which is irrefutable. You cannot do anything. The whole astronomy supports it, that this kind of constellation has happened, but according to their measurements also it happened 90,000 years before, and according to the Hindu scholars also it happened 90,000 years before. And because it is described in such detail, it cannot be said that Rig Veda was written as Christians think, just 3,000 or at the most 5,000 years before. People who were writing Rig Veda 5,000 years before cannot in any way describe something which happened 85,000 years before, and there were no astronomical technology in their hands. And anyway, somebody is needed to remember it, which will be the same. And who is going to remember 85,000 years before? Just think how long you can remember back. Your father, your grandfather, perhaps your great-grandfather. Beyond that, it is vacant. It is not that the world began with your great-grandfather, just because you cannot remember. These religions, Hindu, Judaism, Mohammedanism, Christians, are all God-oriented. They believe God created the world. In fact, they are believers in the concept of creation, and creation needs naturally a creator. But the whole scientific approach proves just the opposite. It is not a creation. Creation means complete. That's what the Bible says. In 6 days, God created the world in its perfection. And then 7th day he rested, and nobody knows what happened to him, where he gone again. Because the world was perfect, now there was no need. Evolution means the world is never perfect. It is trying to be perfect. It is evolving. Creation is something dead. Everything has come to a full stop. That is a very dead idea about existence. Existence is a constant flow towards higher beings, higher consciousnesses. Certainly, God did not create Gautam Buddha. And you cannot say that Adam and Eve had the same consciousness and the same Satchidananda as Gautam Buddha. Gautam Buddha is a very evolved being, and the evolution is going on without God managing it. Existence is accepted by Buddhism, Jainism, and Taoism as autonomous and eternal. That looks meaningful. But God is removed completely. And the Christians who were translating Buddhist scriptures were worried why Buddha did not deny and prevent his disciples calling him Bhagwan, because they cannot understand that in Buddhism, Bhagwan takes a totally different meaning. It means the Blessed One. The same is true about Jainism. God-oriented religions have their God in the beginning, and then not even a trace is found of that God. Atheists have been challenging him, but he seems to be either deaf or perhaps Nietzsche is right, he is dead, or perhaps Gautam Buddha is right that he never existed. So who can give the proof? One great English atheist, Edmund Burke, had asked a very simple thing, addressing a big meeting of atheist association. He said, if God exists, I will wait for 5 minutes looking at his watch. And I don't want him to do something great like he did for Moses, separated the ocean into two parts and gave way to Moses and his followers to pass through the surging ocean on both the sides. No walls, just water. Miles deep valley, and on both the sides water is standing on its own. He said, I don't want to give him that much trouble. All I want is stop my watch within 5 minutes and I will believe. And God could not even do that. Atheists have been continuously challenging God, but no answer. In fact, he has not left his address with us. Even if you want to write a letter, you cannot. Your prayers are thought by those who think the whole hypothesis of God as nonsense. your prayers are very childish. To whom you are addressing, where he is, you have not seen. You have not anybody who has seen. In Jainism, Buddhism, God comes at the end of evolution, and that is more significant meaning. Then there is not a single God. That is also significant to remember, that a single God is bound to become a dictator, and the world cannot be really free under a dictatorial, a Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Ronald Reagan. And God is not elected by you. You are just puppets in his hands. As he created you out of mud, any day he can bulldoze you back into mud. There is no higher court to appeal. The whole idea of creation is whimsical. Buddhism says every living being is on the way to become a god. God is the ultimate evolution of consciousness. That's why Buddha did not deny his disciples to address him as Bhagwan. Neither Mahavira, they are Bhagwan, but their meaning is totally different. They are not creators of the world. They don't claim any stupid, ridiculous idea. They are very straightforward. They simply are saying that consciousness evolving from animal to man, from man to God. So every living being one day is going to become God. The whole world will be full of gods. And this seems to be more scientific. Just one solitary God, and existence looks so poor. And that solitary God, what he will do? Marijuana? Hashish? Or playing cards with the Holy Ghost? What he is going to do since eternity to eternity? But that's how communication becomes difficult. The Hindu papers in India never write my name as Bhagwan. That is a taboo, because Bhagwan means one who created the world. I certainly am not so mad to create this world. Christians were worried. When I was in America's first jail, I was sharing the cell with a criminal who has been there for many years. And I was puzzled because I was completely lying and resting. What else to do? But that man will get up and he has his Bible and he will put the Bible on the bed, sit on the floor, put his head on the Bible and pray to God. His name was Bobby. So I one day shook him and I said, Bobby, what are you doing? If you are such a great Christian, you should not have been in the jail. You have murdered and you never thought about God and about Bible and everything. And God cannot help because for 4 years you have been praying. And have you ever looked inside this Bible? Just putting your head on the Bible is not going that the Bible will start moving into your head. It is not a creeping thing, just dead words. He was very much shocked and he said, I also wanted to ask you, when I heard that you are called Bhagwan, I was very much surprised. Certainly you have not created the world. I said, if I had created the world, you would not have been in the world. You are enough proof I have not created that world. He was very much shocked. He said, you seem to be a very strange person. I said, God has to be a strange person. And you are stupid, Bobby. I am sitting here and you are putting your head on a dead book. Turn towards me. He said, but you are not a Christian. I said, I am a God. Are you interested in God or in a Christian God? He said, you are raising such great problems I have never thought about. Yes, that is true. I am interested in God. But if you are God, then why you are in jail? I said, this is nothing, Bobby. What was Jesus Christ? He said he was God, God's only begotten Son. And I said, if he can be crucified, what is the problem of my being in jail? Your Christian God would have also been in jail because he has not been found yet. He is out of jail. He said, that seems to be logical because Jesus Christ was crucified. He became friendly, very friendly, just 3-4 days before. I have received a letter from another jail. Bobby has been moved to another jail. And he has introduced me to his new cellmate and told him that if you write a letter to Bhagwan, remind him that poor Bobby remembers you. He will not have forgotten my name. But he shattered all my beliefs. Just being 5 days with him was enough. God created the world in 6 days, he finished in 5 days. Because I explained to him a simple fact that God is the final evolution. Bobby, one day you are going to be a God. It is not going to happen by prayer. The religions which believe in God are bound to believe in prayer. That's why in the West, meditation has never developed. Only the religions that don't believe in God have developed meditation. Because God is somewhere out, you have to pray. You have to depend on Him. If He listens, good. If He does not listen, what can you do? Meditation is developed by those whose God is inside. That's where I find people like Jesus Christ contradictory. On the one hand, he says the kingdom of God is within. And then every day he prays to a God somewhere above the skies. This is a simple contradiction which cannot be in any way explained. If God is within, then meditation is the way, not prayer. Prayer to whom? To yourself? Then there is only way of getting deeper into your consciousness and finding the godliness, which I am calling Satchidananda. So when a Buddhist or a Jaina is talking to a Hindu or a Christian, if they mention the word God, there will be no communication at all. The Christian will hear something else. He will hear about the God who created the world 6,004 years before. Of course, 1st January Monday, because he cannot create in the middle of the calendar. There was no calendar before he created the world. The calendar starts with the world. You can't have a calendar when there is no universe. Where you will hang it? Simple problems. Where you will print it? So Christians don't say 1st January, Monday. I'm saying it. That if he ever created the world, at the same time he must have created the calendar. The moment the Christian thinks of God, he immediately thinks of this whole thing that is lined up in his mind. When a Buddhist says Bhagwan, there is no question of creation. He is not looking backward, he is not looking into the past, he is looking forward. He is looking forward in everybody's evolution into the ultimate flowering of consciousness, truth, and bliss. Each living being, sooner or later, is going to become a God. One day the whole existence will be full of gods, and that will be its ultimate evolution. How to communicate? On each single word, you have different opinions, prejudices, conditions. The words are the same, but the moment you say them and the other hears them, he is not hearing the same meaning. He is hearing a different meaning. Of course, the word is the same, but the word triggers a totally different meaning. So, as your communication is about higher things, more difficult, almost impossible. As far as Premda, the lovers are concerned, they have still more difficulty in communicating. Because the feminine mind functions differently. And the masculine mind functions differently. And man has been conditioned by the society in a different way than the woman is conditioned. And both have to live together 24 hours. It becomes heavy. It becomes heavy because whatever the man says, the woman hears something else. The woman is not much in the head, she is much more in the heart. and the man is much more in the head. That creates a great disparity. He is perfectly good in arguments. A man and wife were fighting, and the man said, "Sit down, be calm and quiet, and let us reason it out." The wife said, "Never, because whenever we reason out anything, you are the victorious. No reasoning." I'm going to break things, furniture, burn clothes, if you are not going to agree with me. And the man said, "Wait, you are right. It is not a question of reasoning, because each time you say, calm down, sit quietly, and let us argue it out, you are the winner." The woman has her own arguments, breaking plates. Of course, those plates are ones which have to be broken. She never breaks the really beautiful ones. She hits the man with the pillow, but hitting somebody with a pillow is not any violence. It is a very non-violent fight, a soft pillow. She throws things at the man, but never aims at him, aims here and there. But that is enough to create a havoc in the neighborhood. That's what she wants, that the whole neighborhood should know what is happening. That humbles down the husband. He starts crawling and asking that, "Forgive me. I was wrong from the very beginning. I knew it." As couples settle, the husband forgets all about arguing. When he enters into the house, he takes a deep breath and prepares himself for any irrational thing that is going to happen. A man saw before a restaurant written on a board that here you will feel at home. Reading it, he entered. The waitress came and she asked, "What I can do for you?" He said, "First, bring me chapatis, but all burnt." The waitress could not understand. Vegetable without any salt, milk which has gone rotten. The woman thought this man seems to be mad. And then come here and sit before me and nag. The waitress thought a strange customer, but Let us try what can be done. She brought burnt chapatis, rotten vegetable without any salt, milk, which is no more milk. It is almost curd. And then the man said, "Sit before me," and start nagging me. The woman said, "What kind of person you are?" He said, "What kind of person? Then go out and look at your board you have put before the restaurant, that you will feel at home here." This is how I can feel at home, otherwise not, because this is what my wife has been doing to me for years. Now I have become accustomed. If you don't nag me, I cannot eat. I have no appetite at all. Once you start nagging, I start immediately feeling appetite. A conditioning. With lovers, it becomes difficult, more difficult than ordinary people, because the ways a woman comes to conclusions are not logical. Those are hunches, but they are mostly right. Logic may fail, but her hunches don't fail. She has a certain intuitive approach. Man has only an intellectual approach. And certainly the intuitive approach has some back door to know the reality. Intellect simply goes knocking on the front door and nobody opens it. Back door is always open. It is just after midnight and there is a knock on the doctor's door. Dragging himself out of bed and poking his head out of the window, he peers down at the figure on the doorstep. "Well?" he asks. The woman looks up and says, "No, sick." Even on small words, well, the woman functions differently. Once it is understood, then some kind of communication is possible. A man goes into the pharmacy and says to the aging female assistant, "I would like 10 condoms, please, miss." "Don't you miss me?" snapped the assistant. "Okay," he replies, "then give me 11. "No, no, 100 times no," cried the centipede to his wife, crossing his legs. It is not only in the human world, even in the animals. You will find the same conflict going on all over the world. Old man Finkelstein is desperate to get married, but so far he has not met with any success. Finally, he advertises for a wife in the local newspaper. He gets almost 200 replies, most of them from men who write, "You can have mine." The pompous judge glares over the courtroom at the tramp woman who has been dragged into court on a charge of vagrancy. Have you ever earned an honest dollar in your life, you good for nothing? Yes, Your Honor, replies the woman, I voted for you in the last election. Lovers are not man and woman unless they come to a state of meditative consciousness, will not be able to communicate. Their communication will be always a conflict. It will never be a communion. The only possibility is that if both evolve their consciousness to a point where it goes beyond the mind, then all conditions are left behind. Even the biological differences are left behind. The consciousness that goes beyond mind is no more males, no more females. Now there is a possibility to have some, not only conversation, but communion. A deep understanding is possible. But without meditation, no such possibility exists. And for thousands of years, man has lived in this situation of no communication. And he has become accustomed, man has become accustomed, the woman has become accustomed. And they think nothing can be done about it. And in fact, I am the first man who is saying something can be done about it. Neither Gautam Buddha, nor Jesus, nor Moses, nor Lao Tzu, nobody has even thought about it. And it is one of the greatest problems. Every house is full of this conflict. And children grow in the atmosphere of this non-communication. And naturally, they start learning the same strategies that their parents were doing. It is almost that every husband has forced the woman into a slavery. And every woman has taken revenge. It is natural. She has reduced every husband in a hand-pegged husband. It is a very vicious circle. Man has taken away the freedom of woman, has taken away her education, has taken away her culture, has taken away her freedom of movement in the society, has taken away her financial independence. Naturally, she is burning with anger. For centuries on, whatever she could do as a personal reaction to this was to torture the husband in 1,001 ways. She has invented her own ways. If she is unhappy, the husband is going to get a cold tea, may have to miss the lunch, or may find in the office when he opens his tiffin that there is nothing. It is said that Akbar once asked his courtiers that, do you think in the capital there are few strong men who are not hand-pegged? All the courtiers said, we think this is a vast capital, there may be at least few people. But Birbal, the most intelligent man in his court, said, my lord, I think there is not a single man on the whole earth who is not hand-pegged. Husband means hand-pegged. The emperor was a little angry. He said, what do you mean? He said, I exactly mean what I have said. These courtiers, great warriors, your generals, they are saying in the capital there may be some people. None of them has raised his hand that I am not a hand-pegged husband. You yourself are asking the question, but can you raise your hand and say that you are not hand-pegged? And remember your Allah. Don't lie. The emperor was completely stunned and he said, I cannot lie, that's true. About me it is true. My wife tortures me. That is the only place where I am no more emperor. But these people are saying few people. Birbal said, I am ready to investigate the whole capital. Give me your two beautiful Arabian horses. one you have is white, one is black. I will take those two horses and go for an investigation. He went to many people, strong people, wrestlers, professional fighters, warriors, but they all said, he offered them that if you can say that you are not handpegged, you will have to come to the court and declare it. Then you can choose one of the horses. These are the greatest horses in the world. You will never find, you cannot manage, you cannot afford. This is the best breed. They have been brought from Arabia only for the emperor. One horse is yours, you can choose. But they said, we love the horses. They look great. But we are sorry, we cannot declare. If our wife comes to know that we have declared we are not handpegged, there will be great difficulty, much more difficulty than the horse. Finally, he came into a gardener's hut, a poor man, but a very strong man, 7 feet high. And he was digging a hole, and Birbal asked, are you handpegged? He did not answer. He showed his muscles, which were almost like steel. He said, give me your hand in my hand. Birbal himself was a warrior, a fighter. He gave his hand, but the hand of the gardener was almost like steel. As he pressed Birbal's hand, he hit the roof. He said, leave me, you will kill me. Certainly it seems, because he has not even answered about handpegged or anything. He was simply proving that you dare to ask such a question to me? Birbal said, then you can choose one horse. Certainly you are not handpegged. Whichever you like. And he called inside for his wife to come out. She was a small woman, very thin. And he said to her, that which horse should I choose? Because I don't want any quarrel later on. You tell me the color. Birbal said, stop. Now you don't choose any. It is finished. You are a hand-pegged husband. But even Birbal wondered how this small woman is harassing this giant of a man. He came with 2 horses back to the court and told to the emperor, there is not a single person. It has deep roots in the psychology of man. Because man has misbehaved for centuries with women. Women have found their own small strategies. They cannot revolt because they are so dependent. They have been crippled. They cannot become a class separate from man like the proletariats and the bourgeois, the rich and the poor, and they can fight and have a great revolution like communist revolution in Russia. That is not possible because each woman is attached with a single man. The woman can't function as a class. So they cannot go against men as a class. But each single woman finds her own strategy to torture. And it is very easy for her to torture. The fundamentals of the strategy are: first, he makes the man completely dependent on her for his food, for his clothes, for his bed, for everything. This is absolutely unconscious. And when the man becomes completely dependent on the woman, then any conflict, and he does not get the food, and he cannot cook, and he will not get fresh clothes because he cannot wash himself. He knows nothing about it. He will not get a bed prepared for him because he has never prepared it. He does not know what to do. In the house, the woman rules so totally that any moment she can withdraw, and that's enough. She has not to do anything active and violent, just she can withdraw. And the man becomes almost a helpless child. Communication is possible only into equals. And communication is possible only beyond the mind. You will find here with my people slowly a communication developing. As their consciousness will be going higher, they will start understanding many things which they were not able to understand before. They will not only understand their own unconscious, they will also understand the woman's unconscious. They will not only understand their own minds, they will also understand the feminine mind, and vice versa. And because they both are beyond, there is a possibility of tremendous understanding. And the world will be at peace only when man and woman have come to a deep understanding. And with that deep understanding, there will be great love, great compassion, great friendliness. It is an absolute to be achieved. Without it, man can never become civilized.
My spelling error, Lolita for Lokita, has created havoc around here. Lovers of Lolita are tearing around calling, "Where is my Lolita?" And Lokita is dying to be called Lolita. And Milarepa doesn't know which is Lolita and which is Lokita. This would have to be a once mistake.
Jivan Mary. They say history repeats itself. And history repeats itself because man is unconscious. So he goes on committing the same mistakes again and again. Although he decides every time that he is not going to commit the same mistake, but the decision remains hanging only in the conscious. It never reaches into the unconscious, from where all actions arise. And there is no communication between the conscious and the unconscious. There is no bridge. They don't know each other. Nobody has ever introduced them to each other. And you will find it everywhere. A smoker decides, this is the last cigarette. Enough is enough. I'm not going to smoke again. And within 2-3 hours, he feels so uneasy, so uncomfortable, so tense and under stress. He forgets all about the decision. He thinks just one more cigarette is not going to kill me. And this has been going on for years. He has decided, and even when he is deciding, he knows this is not going to happen. But try one time more, perhaps. The problem is that the mistakes are unconscious. Unless your consciousness becomes deep enough that it reaches to the very bottom of your unconscious, you will have to repeat mistakes. I have been once an editor of a daily newspaper. In this small life, I have done so many things. There I became aware what they call the proofreader's blindness. I have seen it myself, that the proofreader goes on doing the same mistake again and again. It seems to be strange that the same word he goes on missing. There seems to be some unconscious reason behind it. That pulls him back or makes him blind, and he passes the word without exactly reading it, or passes it quickly. And once he has committed that mistake, he can read the whole passage many times on that particular word. He will simply become unaware. It may have some deep wound inside. For example, a man who has failed utterly in love, and love has left only a wound in his being. The word love he will pass quickly, without his knowing. And he will see that it is written perfectly rightly with right spelling. But he is not looking at it. He does not want to look at it because it opens his wound. The same is the situation of the typist Jivan Mary. It is not a different thing. You can commit the same mistake again and again. Because man is not conscious, his whole life is a repetition. Just the other day, I was telling you a man married 10 women. He went fast 3 months, 4 months, that was more than he could live with one woman. But finally, not only he found that the 10th woman is a woman once he has married before, another finding was that he always ends up with the same kind of woman. 3-4 months he becomes fed up, he divorces, but when he falls in love again, within 2-3 days he finds, my God. Although it is a different woman, but it has the same character. He does not know that his choice is coming from the unconscious, and his decision is coming from the conscious. They are two separate parts of his being. He loves a certain kind of woman, a certain hairstyle, a certain kind of eyes, a certain color, a certain face, certain nose, a certain curvature of the body. He is not aware why he falls in love with a certain woman. But it is going to be always the same woman in a different dress, with a different name, but his choice, because he is the chooser, he finds the woman, and again he finds the same kind of woman. And the same kind of woman will show the same kind of character sooner or later. The man was puzzled at how it is happening, but he was not aware it is happening because of his unconscious. This is our whole life story. we go on doing the same mistake. We are bound to do it because we have not done anything to change the very structure of our consciousness. Jeevan Mary, it is possible not to commit the same mistake again, but you will need not just to be more alert in typing, you will have to be more conscious in your whole life. Each moment, you will have to be more meditative. Then, even to commit a mistake once becomes difficult. But you can commit once, that is allowed. Twice, you cannot commit it. Your whole being knows it, and there is no division. Your house is not divided, your house is one. You are one, you are not split. Otherwise, what we go on doing, with one hand we make something, and with the other hand we go on destroying it. And we are not aware that both are our hands. It needs a tremendous revolution in your consciousness. Jaime Goldberg gets a phone call from his lawyer. What do you want to hear first? The bad news or the terrible news? The lawyer asks, hell, said Jaime, give me the bad news first. Okay, replies the liar. The bad news is that your wife has found a picture worth $100,000. That is a bad news? Cries Jaime. In that case, I can't wait to hear the terrible news. The terrible news, replies the liar, is that the picture is of you and your secretary on Miami Beach. An old chicken farmer is very proud of his brood. So when two smartly dressed city gentlemen ask to look at them, he quickly obliges. A very fine bunch of chickens, says one of the men. Thank you, sir, replies the farmer. And what do you feed them on? Asks the second man. A special chicken fertilizer imported from China, says the old man proudly. Aha, cries the first man, just as we suspected. That is illegal. You will be fined $2,000. A month later, two more well-dressed men show up and ask the farmer what he feeds to his magnificent chickens. The old man, wiser than the first time, says, I just feed them on shit. Aha, say the man, we are from the health hygiene department. And what you are doing is illegal. You will be fined $2,000. A few weeks later, another city gentleman arrives and asks the same question. This time the farmer shrugs and says, listen, mister, I just give them 50 cents each and tell them to go to the market and buy whatever the hell they want.